Who stays? Who goes? We talk about all of that inside this No Horsing Around podcast. Zach Boyd and Stephen Burton coming right at you. What is going on? No Horsing Around family. Zach Boyd, Stephen Burton, right back at you again. This time, guys, it'll be fun to talk about. We got several hot, big names that we could re-sign and keep as Indianapolis Colts, or we may choose to let them walk. We've got a nice little list that we've compiled together. Stephen and I have talked about this week, and I just thought it'd be fun to kind of go back and forth and just see where we're at. And then when it's all said and done, when we upload this thing, hit us up in the comments, and we'll see where you're at. Stephen, this one's going to be a fun one, man. I'm excited to talk about some players, almost through the season. The Super Bowl's this Sunday, and we're about to the next part and the next phase of the 2024 season. So let's just, like we always do, let's just dive right in, man. And how about you bring the first one up? Let us know what you think, and then I'll go next.
Yeah, so I mean, the first one, and we had a lot of fun kind of compiling the list.
Yeah.
And there's some names on it, everyone's going to be like, oh, that's a, slam dunk no-brainer. And then there's some that are kind of, we'll give a little debate on. First one up, obviously, is Kenny Moore, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, kind of looking at it, you have to find a way to bring him back. Yeah. It's not just the playmaking ability that he has, which we saw much more on display this season than last season in regards to being in Gus Bradley's defense and how he looked. But it's also that is a young room. You've got to have some veteran leadership.
Yeah.
And what's the old adage? Like some with like some skins on the wall. Like he's a Pro Bowler. I mean, one time should be more, but he's also, he's the leader of, I think, that group. And I think you have to find a way, some way to bring him back. Also, the depth is not like, it's not super deep. You know what I mean?
Right.
What we have sitting there. So, I mean, in my opinion, he's a must re-sign.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we go through this list, there's going to be a few people that we probably would re-sign. Kenny Moore, I think, on this list would be number 3 for me if I've got it right in my head. There's 2 guys I would put slightly ahead of him, but I will agree with you on this. It's kind of funny, Stephen. Before this season, I probably wouldn't have the same feelings as I have right now about Kenny Moore, but he had a hell of a nice bounce back season. He really did. And you make a great point. We just don't have a lot of depth at that cornerback position to start with. We're very young. I do think that Chris Ballard and Gus Bradley, Shane Steichen, they all kind of believe in this young youth movement that we went through. We went through the growing pains. Hopefully you get those guys to come back. Maybe a Dallas Flowers comes back on the mend, and you've got a little bit stronger room as it goes. But I think Kenny Moore, up until a point, is almost – I wouldn't quite classify him as a must sign, but he's a priority guy, I would think, for sure. If he gets some crazy number from another team, you're going to have to let him walk. And now you redirect. You go back into free agency, maybe you go into the draft. But my thoughts are, if you're going to sign someone anyways, why not sign a guy who's already been here really his whole career, and when you have that background, that pedigree with him. So, yeah, I'm going to agree with you on Kenny Moore. Next one up, you want to go with the obvious one here, Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I was back and forth on it. I was like, do we want to go really obvious? I mean,
yeah, this is probably the easiest no-brainer for me. He absolutely has earned a contract. The way he handled himself this year, with the media, with the team, with the organization, I don't think you could have asked for anyone to be better under the circumstances that he did not get a contract extension prior to the season. He's earned himself a really, really nice payday. And the bottom line is Michael Pittman Jr. is going to get paid from somebody. I mean, there's just no question when it comes to that part of it. He's going to get paid, and it's going to be north of $20 million, in my opinion. But you got to do it. Cannot go out there with a young quarterback, especially who's only really had 3-4 starts. If you combine them all together, he's not really played a lot of football games, and not having that number 1 option out there, that'd be risky business. So for me, Michael Pittman Jr., no brainer. He'd be the one I would sign. if he doesn't sign, he's probably going to get franchise tagged, and I'm with it either way.
Yeah, I mean,
Hell yeah! Hell
Exactly.
yeah!
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, I think you have to, and you got to just bite the bullet. He's going to cost a lot of money,
Sure
but we
is.
saw this season too. When he didn't play,
Oh,
how the offense looked. The offense ran through him, like the passing game ran through him.
yeah.
Now, could it change a little because that's Gardner Minshew and how he wanted to play it?
Yeah.
Maybe, but he was so integral. And I think you said too. I mean, we joked before the season. We wanted to give him the contract extension then because of how he handled himself
Yep.
as opposed to how JT did at the beginning of the season. I think you have to do it. In the end, like I have arguments with people in Tennessee all the time about this. They're like, we're going to go get Michael Pittman Jr. I think in the end, he doesn't leave the building because I think
Yeah.
they're going to either sign him, which I think is what they want to do, or they're going to tag him. And
Yep.
he's already kind of come out and said he's okay. Like it's not a slap in the face to get tagged. Who wouldn't want, $20-something million? He would ideally want a long-term deal to be worked out. But he seems okay with that. I think they know they have that. I think this is the first signing. This is like there's nothing that needs to happen
Yeah.
until his signature is on a paper
Yeah.
saying he's coming back next year.
I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. Number 3 on our list. Go ahead and pop somebody up, Steven, and give us your thoughts on that one there too. Guy who had a really
So I'm
good
torn
year,
on this one.
Yeah.
It's Zach Moss, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has come out and said that he would like to come back.
Yeah.
Like he can see a pathway, obviously, to come back. He's not going to say like that's where I want to be because he's not going to let his agent's not going to let him lose any of that leverage.
Sure.
I think it depends on this one to me depends on the money.
Yeah.
What does he want as they supplemental back? Because he was fantastic this year. I think it's a great 1-2 punch that's there. I think you do have to remember you have several backs. You do have Evan Hull coming out who
Yeah.
looked pretty good in the beginning before he got injured. You can always take a later run. It's to me this one is going to come down to what he wants and what kind of role he wants too. If he wants to be a starter, Ballard's he's always made it clear, right? Go get your money. You may not get it here, but go get as much as you can.
Yeah.
So if he wants a lot of money and a lot of snaps, he's not going to be back. So I mean, for me, it's like right there in the middle. I would like to, but I worry and I think he's going to get a better offer somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you from this standpoint. I think, hasn't he kind of really earned another contract from somebody in this league? I thought he played really well. Now, he had some injuries at the end of the season that really hamstrung him. He wasn't quite as productive as he was early on when he was the lead back. But that being said, I mean, not one, you'll not hear one complaint from me from Zach Moss last year. I mean, he kind of, in some ways, saved our season. I mean, with what he did, in that Baltimore game, and he put us kind of in the position to be able to go out there in that last game and even have a chance to make the playoffs. Here's a guy that I think Ballard's definitely going to let him see what's out there. What's the money look like? He may just be a late signing. He may just not be a guy that they go out and they may not have a lot of interest early on. And he may just say, you know what? If I'm going to go and I'm going to sign with someone, I'm not going to push it all summer long. If I'm going to be a backup anyways, maybe I just stick with what I'm familiar with, sign another 1-year or 2-year deal, and then be the secondary back behind Jonathan Taylor. It's a guy I would sign back. I don't expect the Colts necessarily to sign him back. But for the right price, I don't think there would be any issue for me at all for them. You don't want to spend a lot more money. You're already $14 million a year with Jonathan Taylor. You don't really want to invest a whole lot of money into that position. But if you could get him to come back and play for $1.5 million, $2 million a year for the next couple of years, maybe you do entertain that for sure. Moving on down the list, another guy that we've always really, really liked, had a good year before he got hurt, Julian Blackman. And man, boy, couldn't you tell when he was not out there, in that last game and you're just getting injured. This one's a tricky one for me, Steven. because I'm a fan of him. It's
I want to hear you first.
Heart versus head right here, right? In my heart, I'd love to see the guy come back, sign a contract, and be a lifetime Colt and really fulfill what I think is I think he could be a really good long-term safety in the NFL. But that being said, I don't know what the market's going to be for Julian Blackman. I think you let him walk unless it's an absolute steal of a deal. You're going to sign so many of these guys, and then you're maybe going to go out and spend some money in free agency. I just don't think Ballard, with the track record of his injuries, I don't think Ballard's going to be inclined to go out and jump right after him. This might be like a super late signing where he just kind of goes through the cycle. He's just out there even after the draft. No one's decided to go ahead and pick him up. And maybe Ballard does something like he's done in the past with Tyquan Lewis, where he says, you know what? We love you. We love the culture that you bring. We love what you stand for. You're a horseshoe guy. You didn't go out there. You didn't find anything else. Let's do a 1-year prove it deal. Let's see if your body can hold up. And then let's talk about this again next year. Wouldn't be opposed to re-sign him on a very cheap 1-year prove it deal, but it would be a guy that would not be, for me, Stephen, a priority signing, because I think I'm going to prioritize, obviously, Pittman, Kenny Moore, and we're going to talk about the next guy after this one here. Those would be my top 3 priorities, and then whatever else falls in your lap falls in your lap.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it sucks, right? Like, he was having a great season. I think he would have been a pretty obvious re-sign with the season he was having till he got hurt. I look at it and, like, I want to disagree with you, right? I want to be like, oh no, they're going to sign him. But I look at it and I just see, like, we did, last week we did the episode where we talked about some of the people who are out there, and we named some very solid safeties that they could go and try to go get. I look at him and I think of, like, it's going to sound bad, but I think of like a Malik Hooker, right? Where I think there was a lot that was invested in him. He was a first round pick, but he could just never get over the injury hump. And I look, on the other side of the ball, like a Paris Campbell. I think we all loved Paris Campbell, but he couldn't get over that injury hump to that last season, and they let him walk.
Yeah.
And I feel like in my heart, like, I feel like they're going to let Julian Blackman. He's going to let him test the market. I think he's going to end up walking. I just sit there. Now, the only hesitancy I have in saying that goes back, obviously, to the Kenny Moore part too. Is it is not a deep room. It's not.
No.
The safeties are not deep. We're sitting there looking at Nick Cross and Rodney Thompkins. I mean, I don't love that. And he is a veteran leader, and he showed that this year. That's my only hesitancy with that. But I think in the end, I think they're going to look to try to get that veteran leadership probably outside of the building, and probably draft a player too.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think they're going to go for an upgrade at that position, a young, talented player, as well as probably hitting in the draft. That's going to be a real focal point, just in my opinion. Next guy for me, you know what, Steven? Let's go with Grover. Do we have Grover?
I was going to say, I was laughing because I'm looking at the next guy and you're like, he's a must resign. I was like, I don't think he's thinking of the same person I am.
Yeah, no, this guy here is a must resign to me. If I had to prioritize in order, it'd be Pittman Jr., Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore. I think those would be the 3 top targets in-house to sign back. Grover Stewart, to me, I think everybody saw when he had the 6-game suspension this year, and we can all debate, and that's a different podcast, a different day, different topic. Did he know he did that? Did he not know he did that? Whatever. When he didn't play those 6 games, teams literally ran the football down our throats. When he comes back, it's completely different. He's a run stopper, not a guy who's going to show up in the stat line, but when Grover Stewart is on the field, and when he is not on the field. Great tandem, with him and DeForest Buckner in the middle, and I'd have no problem signing him back to another 3 or 4 year deal. He earned that extension the first time, and I think he's earned a second extension, if I'm being 100% honest. I think he is everything that you want in the defensive tackle. We all know that Chris Ballard values, talks about that line, front line, D-line, O-line all the time in the trenches. Well, that's a trench guy, and that's a guy, in my opinion, I would not let walk. Give him his money. Give him his money and let him be the anchor and be that real big run stopper for the next 3 or 4 years for the Indianapolis Colts, and you don't have to worry about anything. I am 100% on board. Team Grover Stewart. What say you, Stephen Burton?
I think I'm in agreement, right? Like on everything you said, I think he's a culture fit.
Yeah.
He's loved in that locker room. He's loved by the front office. I think it's a pride thing a little bit too. Ballard found him, later.
Yep.
He wasn't a high draft pick. He came in. He gave him the first extension. I'm a little different on one thing too. I don't think his suspension affects it whatsoever. There was a lot of talk of could it affect his ability to resign? Could it affect his market? I don't think it affects it at all.
Yeah.
I think for me, he's second. He's like the second most obvious re-sign, I feel. You have Michael. I think we all can agree. Like Michael Pittman Jr. is one with a bullet. Like that's an obvious re-sign, and I think Grover is right there. You continue to pair him with DeForest Buckner, and you allow these other players to come along like a Dio Dangbo, Kwity Paye. I mean, that's a whole, like you say, that's a different conversation for a different podcast episode with him. But I mean, you allow that, and I think you pointed out best, like you saw visibly, you could see the difference when he was not there. And we were just all counting the days, counting the weeks till he was coming back. So, I mean, for me, I think he's a very obvious re-sign. And you just do it, just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we don't really need to spend any more time with Grover. I think everybody agrees. And if you disagree, let us know why. If you do agree, let us know why. If you haven't had a chance, guys, like, rate, review, share, and subscribe. Join this No Horsing Around family. We're now over 3,000 subscribers. And it's really just because of you. You guys keep giving us the opportunity to speak and talk about, our passion. We share that passion with you, the Colts fan base. So thank you so much, and just keep it going. Light us up in the comments. Next guy, a guy who I really was just a godsend, honestly, this year, Stephen. One Gardner Minshew got an opportunity, to go down there in the Pro Bowl, which I thought was really cool for him. Put our team in position when we had our star young rookie quarterback. Put this team on his back and found a way to keep us in it literally to the very last drive of the season. And he's maybe one dropped pass away from taking this team to the playoffs. And I think he's earned another contract. I have no gripes at all for him going out there and seeing if he can't get paid and can't get that money. Ultimately, if he can't get paid and he can't get that money, I would love Gardner Minshew to come back and be that mentor and that veteran in that room behind Anthony Richardson, because I think those two guys, you just pair them together. And, Gardner is the ultimate pros pro and in support of Anthony all the way around. Love to have him back. I don't know if the financials are going to work out and match up. I don't know how that's going to go. But if the money can all line up the right way, then for me, I would sign Gardner back, and I would probably be cool with signing him to a 2 or 3 year extension and just having your fit for the next 2 or 3 years and not have to worry about this. Now, there may be a situation where we just feel like we have to allocate our money maybe for some bigger names outside of this building, and the money just doesn't work. At the end of the day, it's a guy that I wouldn't have any problems at all if they did sign back. If you're asking me, do I expect Gardner Minshew to be back next year? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say because of the draft, it's pretty rich in quarterback. You've got a Kirk Cousins floating around. You've got some other veteran guys floating around, Baker Mayfield. I just don't know. Where's the starting job going to be? I think that's the problem. And I think if he's going to be a backup in the NFL, I think he would prefer to be a backup in a system that he already knows. He has built this relationship with Shane Steichen, and there's maybe an opportunity. He found an opportunity this year, maybe finds another opportunity. We hope not, knock on wood, that Richardson's healthy moving forward. But I'm going to say that ultimately he would like to go get that big payday, and he'd like to get a little bit bigger payment. But I think ultimately when it's all said and done, it may take a while for him to get signed. I think he comes back to the Colts, even if it's just a 1-year deal and we pay him and we're fair to him and we pay him like he should be paid. But he won't break the bank. And that's just my personal opinion. What are your thoughts?
So I would love to have him back. I think he was a fantastic mentor in the offseason to AR. I think he fits really well in the locker room. I think the locker room loves him. You see it in the clips, you see it kind of in the interviews. I think they love him. I would gladly have him back. If you're asking me, like, I'll answer the same question you did, which is, do I think he's back? I don't.
Okay.
And I say that because I'm gonna take something you said and I'm gonna play it towards my reasoning. There's a lot of young quarterbacks that are coming into the league.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unproven quarterbacks coming in, outside like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, who are going to be up there in the top. But I could see him being brought in somewhere else to start the year and let that quarterback get his legs under him and let them take their time with who they're having. Like, I could see like a Washington or, someone who's taking like a Michael Penix Jr. later in, or a Bo Nix, someone like that, that's who they want to play, but they're not ready to. Kind of similar to and it's not the setup, but like Tannehill with Will Levis, right? They played Tannehill until he got hurt, and then Levis came in. It's not ideal, but I just think with the amount of young talent and what he proved this year, he proved the ability to lead a team to the cusp of the playoffs, right? Like right there. I don't think he comes back. I think he probably finds something else. But I do agree with you. I think if it comes down to if he's going to be a backup, I think he's going to want to be here where he's comfortable, where he knows the system, where he gets along really well with the coach and he gets along really well with the starting quarterback. I mean, we know their relationship is really tight. So
yeah,
I would love to do it, but I don't see that, because I also don't see them matching whatever he's going to try to get somewhere else. I think they're going to allocate it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree with that, man. Did we get a chance to throw Sanchez up there?
Oh, of course.
So last guy on the list, Sanchez. Won't spend a lot of time on this, but I do think, you've got a really good punter in the building. I thought he started off a little bit slow, but he got really good as the season went along. I don't believe he allowed really any touchbacks this year either, which is kind of a real value, from your punter for sure. Long story short, I would sign him back. I think he will be back. I don't think he'll break the bank. I think he's earned another, opportunity to continue to be the punter. There's not generally a lot of turnover at this position, so I just wouldn't expect, for him to really go out and have a huge market. Not that he couldn't get signed by anybody else, but I would think the Colts would rather just go ahead and keep this guy. And shouldn't be too expensive. So for me, won't spend a lot of time, but I would like to have Sanchez back, and I do think he will be back. What say you?
Yeah, I would agree across the board. I think I want him back. I think he will be back. Punters don't break. You don't have to break the bank for a punter. We did. Obviously, we made Matt Gay the highest paid kicker last year, but that was such needed. And that's another reason why you re-signed Sanchez. You don't want to get yourself – we saw 2 years ago when he tore his Achilles. It greatly affected, even with a very solid special teams unit headed up by Bubba Ventrone, right?
Yep.
There was a big effect on not having him there. It took from Pat McAfee to him, right? Like, it took a little bit of time to find him. And you can pay him. You could pay him top of the line punter money, and it's not going to greatly affect what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I think he will be back. I would be very surprised if for some reason they let him walk. Because also, like you said, I can't remember the last time I saw turnover in the punter position. Like where people are like hunting down. Like if Justin Tucker came out and he was a free agent, I could see people beating down the door, but I don't see it for punter.
Yeah. I think you're right on that. I think we will sign him in. I hope we sign him because he's been pretty good for this football team the last several years. Well, guys, that's our list. We'd like to know what you think about that. Agree, disagree? Did we miss anybody that you really want to see signed, or is there somebody that's going to walk that that we just really didn't have a chance to touch base? We just want to talk about some bigger names. I know there's some smaller names out there as well. Let us know in the comments. You guys did such a great response last week with the free agent. Over 1,000 views, which is awesome. Share this thing, get it out there, and let us know what you think. And as always, end it the same way. I love you. Steven loves you, and we're out.